Okay, what I've got for you today is a AC single action pump. Here's the number stamped in it. It goes to a 53 M37 military truck. And as best as I could tell, it fits, it could fit up to in the late 50s and go back as far as, I think 53 was probably the beginning of it. But usually they'll have a dual action pump. This particular one, the Dodge, ended up with a single action. 6 valves, nice big fittings on it. It's got 3/8 pipe going down to a 5/16 pipe, which ends up being a 1/4 inch hole. I don't know, I don't get it. We're going to go through it. We're going to freshen it up and get it ready for the customer, and I'll show you the steps involved. If you're going to do this at home, or you're going to do this in your shop, call it in by number, that number that was stamped on the flange. Also give them the application, just so they can make sure that somewhere along the line it wasn't done by a previous rebuilder and they just used this body casting and ended up with a different fuel casting, which a lot of the rebuilders will do if they get, a bulk. Anyway, first order of business, get these fittings out of the way. Most of the time, if there's a straight fitting that's in here, I'll leave it alone. But when you got these 90s, a lot of things can get jammed up in behind it, and it's best to remove them. You want to mark the location, the orientation of this top casting to the body, so that when you put it back together, these two inlet and outlet ports end up in the same spot. There's a lot of people out there that say, "Why, I know which way it goes. Why should I bother marking it?" Well, a lot of people will do is start taking these apart. Life gets in the way. It gets put aside. And next thing you know, 6 months has gone by. You remember exactly how it went? The chances are pretty slim. So you can either take a picture of it, a top view with the arm up, so you can tell where the inlet and outlet were. You can scribe it with a file. Put a mark in between here. Put a punch mark. Anyway, draw a picture of it. Do whatever you want, as long as it gets marked. Now you want to take out all of these screws and this one here that I think, pretty sure it goes to a shield that sits up on top. This one right here, a lot of times you'll find there's a triangular shaped plate that goes underneath it, like this one here. Tells you when it was overhauled, where it was overhauled, and the date that it was done. This particular one was 1968. I think it's September of '68 that this one here was done. This is one of the dual action pumps. But that usually would be under this stud here. And that's always at the back. Oh, somebody used red Loctite. Not a good thing. And I'm lucky it didn't snap that screw off. If these don't come out right away, then you have to get I usually get a putty knife, and you'll see, and I'll put it in between there, in between the casting where the diaphragm is, and just a few wraps will knock it loose. This particular one, because there was so much misery with the screws, I didn't have to do it down there, but I'll have to do it up here. It's pretty thick. Obviously been done before. An interesting note here is inside of here, if you look real close in that area, it gives you the date that this particular piece of casting came out of the mold. This one happens to be August of '68. That tells me that it's been done. Oh, it's August of '66. So this is obviously, it's been done later than 1953. Anyway, this is your inlet and outlet valves. Yeah, these are later than what they would have used in the 50s. But remove these 8 screws and the valves will come right out. There's also washers underneath that I'll show you in a minute. Now we want to get this diaphragm out, so we want to push this assembly down just a little bit, just to take some of the pressure off. And then where that pull rod goes down through the center, we want to push the diaphragm down a little bit, tip it back, and then try to scoot that pull rod off of it. Now these military pumps use a gigantic seal in here, and it doesn't always come out, it doesn't always unhook real easy like this one is not doing. So what I do is I grab this diaphragm here, a few snaps with a hammer on this end of the plate. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This time it did. This is the pull rod. And by the looks of this, it has been done before. Somebody's drilled it out and re-swedged it. Let's get some interesting numbers on this diaphragm. This is spring. This is what controls your fuel pressure. And down inside here is the seal. Is the seal retainer, and the seal inside it. And the seal inside is no good. Put a screwdriver in and just kind of pry it out, and you can see what's happened to the seal over time. It's hot as a rock. Anyway, no good. Now, unless you got a problem with the arm where it twists back and forth, or there's a lot of side-to-side movement, there's really no need to change that pin unless you suspect that there's a problem there. But in order to get it out, you just washer right here. You just cut that washer with a chisel, spread it out and take it off, and then with a punch, a drift punch, and just knock this pin out, and it'll come right out through this side. But this one here is nice and snug. There's no problem there. The spring is still good. You'll get one in a kit. You can change it if you want, but if there's not a problem, why bother? Now we got to get these valves out. Like I said, remove those 8 screws. The valves will pop out, and there's gaskets underneath that have to be removed also. One thing to note in these 6 valve, on these retainers, many times I find these broken. One of these little legs will be broken off, or it'll be cracked in the middle here, and this will come out in pieces, broken right where the springs are. Those don't come in a kit. That's something that you'll have to ask for. So it might be beneficial to take the pump apart before you order a kit, just to make sure that if there's anything broken here, or this spring is broken, which a lot of times you'll find, not very often, but it does happen, something is amiss somewhere, a broken piece of casting, a crack in the casting. These are just some things that just don't come in a kit, so it would be better to check it out first. If everything looks good, then call up and order a kit. Otherwise, anything you see that's bad, inquire about it when you call to order the kit. These are the gaskets I was talking about. I'm hoping one of them stays down there. Yeah, these are replacement gaskets anyway. They sit down in here underneath the valve. Now these 6 valve kits are more expensive obviously than the ones that give you just 2 valves. Now if you have a glass beading tank at home, perfect. Where these are going to go through the glass beater, I put these screws back in. A couple of different reasons. Keeps all the glass from going down inside the threads, and it also cleans the screws. A lot of times they'll get rusty. It's another thing that I have screws. I have replacement screws. We stock the springs. We stock those retainers. And I also have the long screws, as usually on all my rebuilds. I'll replace them. Some of these military ones are, the screws that go through these are they're almost 2 inches long. They're pretty close to it. And I have some screws that are about 1/4 of an inch longer that I have to shorten, but I replace them with new ones. So this is ready for the glass beater, and this is ready for the glass beater. Let's see if I can see the date code on this piece of casting here. It's there, but it might be a little tough to see right now. We'll wait till after I get it, after it goes through the glass beater, and then I'll be able to see it. We're going to clean them up. We're going to clear coat them. We're going to flatten out all the surfaces, and then it's time for reassembly. Okay, everything's all nice and cleaned up, clear coated. Surfaces are all nice and flat. If you have a belt sander at least 4 inches wide, that's the best thing to do, as long as it's nice and flat. Otherwise, take a piece of glass on a nice flat surface and put a piece of sandpaper down on it and just keep rubbing the thing around. It'll eventually clear it up. You can also take a flat file, but sometimes a flat file isn't too good. You know, you can get more on one side than the other, or back and forth. But it's effective. As long as you can put the things together and there's no rocking, no noise, You don't want it to move anywhere. Just to let you know that it's nice and flat. Anyway, it's time for some assembly. I found out a couple of things when I was doing when I was cleaning everything up. Earlier I mentioned that the previous rebuilder had used red Loctite on one of the screws. Well, as it turns out, they used it on every one of them. I had to run a tap through every one of these threads, and also run a drill through every one of these holes to open them back up, as there's red Loctite in every single one of them. And this is the casting date for the fuel side is October of '66, and I haven't quite found the one for, oh, here it is. The one for the body is really tough to see. See if I can. August of '66. So it appears that all three pieces of this particular pump came out of the mold all at the same time, which is good. It also shows you that if this is on a 53, this pump didn't come out of the mold until '66. So obviously it's been changed. Something else that I noticed, what I mentioned when I was taking the old diaphragm out, see how thick this pull rod is? And they had, the seal that they had in it was actually made for a pull rod this size. You can see the difference. What should have been in this body was a seal that looked like this. Not this particular one, but had that size hole in it, as opposed to this one. But you can see the difference there. So what happened was, as soon as they started putting this together, remember earlier when I showed you the seal was all blown apart, it was due to the fact that it was wrong. The center is all pushed out of it because that seal has a hole that size in it. Anyway, previous rebuilder doesn't get any points. We're going to put it together and it's going to go together right. So the seal that you're going to get in the kit, this is a retainer. You know, this is there's a little edge right in here, and it goes over the seal up just like that. A lot of other seals you'll see are upside down. These ones go in this way. Set it down into the casting. Make sure it's in the center, and I think use whatever driver you can, but I'm pretty sure like a 3/4 socket, 1/2-inch drive will fit over that and allow you to drive that in. Get about a little, just get it started, and then make sure that that seal's sitting right in the center. Then bottom it out. Get a straight screwdriver with a blunt end on it. I use a chisel that I ground the end off it. Go around the outside. There's a few spots that you can get. You want to dimple that casting, and what it does is it'll keep the retainer from lifting out. Put a little dab of oil right in the center because you don't want that pull rod that you're going to put in there to run dry. Make sure you get your spring on there. Line up the pull rod so that the opening is towards the front. And just the opposite way that you took it out, you gotta push it down and hook. Oh, you didn't get to see that, did you? Let's see if I can get it out of there now. Push it down and hook it. It's easier to do it upside down. You're just hooking that pull rod onto the link that's inside. Now it's time for some fuel casting. We're going to install the valves. Once you get all these screws out of the way, if you put them in, make sure that this area where the valves are going to sit is nice and clean. There's no old gaskets laying in there. And lay the new gaskets in. Make sure they sit down flat. Now you'll see that this hole is bigger than this one here. That determines which way you're going to put this valve. We got rivet up, rivet down. Set your retainers in. Put in the screws and tighten them down. Once all those screws are tightened down, the valves are sitting in there nice and tight. Find the pulsator diaphragm. Line up the holes. I like to get the two center ones done first, then run the outside ones. Don't tighten anything down yet. Don't tighten down those two center ones yet. This just helps keep this diaphragm centered. Don't forget that goes towards the back. And if it had one of those triangular shaped pieces on it, now would be a good time to put that back on. Snug these two down, and you can do a half-ass test. This is the inlet, so you should be able to blow air in through and not suck any air out. Should be able to suck air out but not blow any in. If either one of those, if you can go both ways on either one of those two, then check those valves. Is it not seated right, or there's something wrong there? Check those valves. It should be just a dead a dead stop, just as if those lines were plugged up. Okay. Find your reference mark, whatever it may be, and get a couple of these screws stuck through the diaphragm and get them caught into the casting and run them about halfway down. Run them all about halfway down, but don't tighten anything down all the way. As you can see, there's still play there. It's not tightened down. Get an adjustable wrench, put it on the arm, and pull that diaphragm till it stops. Hold it there and tighten down at least 4 of these screws opposite each other. Now what you're doing there is you're preloading the diaphragm, which helps it last longer and avoids the possibility of a high pressure reading. If you don't preload it, you could get a high pressure reading, like I said, or the diaphragm tends to stretch if it's not done right. When it's done, put that on, block up the inlet, and you should feel your fingers starting to pull it in. Same with the other side. You'll feel pressure on the other side. Now, it's something that always amazed me when it came to these military pumps. They sell them, especially the 6-valve pumps. Comes with a 3/8 pipe, thread, ports. There's also a next one up which comes with 1/2 inch, and then they put these adapters on, or these fittings on here, make it so that you can hook your line up. Well, we got probably a 1/2 inch hole here. It's like 9/16, and it goes into 7/64. Now you're going to screw your 5/16 tubing onto this, which looks like 5/16. Could even be a 1/4 inch. I don't have a fitting handy, but yeah, I do over here. Let's see if I can get it out before everybody falls asleep. Yeah, I'm taking too much time. Anyway, so now we've dropped it down from 7/16 hole or 5/8 hole down to a 1/4 inch tubing or 5/16 tubing. Now I gotta know. Okay, it's definitely 5/16 tubing through a little 7/64 hole. Now, did we just defeat the purpose of all that? Having all that big fitting? As far as I'm concerned, we did. And I'd like to speak to the engineers that decided that that was the best route to take, and we want to be able to get all this fuel out through that little hole. In any event, this particular one comes with a priming lever. And it's ready to go back on the engine. And I hope this video helped you. If you'd like to get in touch with us and order a kit, you can do it online at then-now.com, or you can give us a call at 781-335-8860. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section. If you haven't already, subscribe. Hit the little notification bell. And if you want, leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.